They might not see it. Well, now that we're recording. So let me get everything situated properly. And so those on the recording will kind of see some things that you saw before. And so I appreciate you allowing me to speak with your great district. I've got to know a lot of you very well. And welcome on a Thursday night. And so once again, our goal is to grow your district specifically, grow Rotary, but grow 6260. And so I like showing this chart just to kind of put everybody in perspective, what we're trying to do, where you were in 2011, where we ended 2022. We lost 64 members from 2021 to 2022. So the goal here is to offset that. And that's actually Rotary's global goal. And I always like to point out that Rotary has the same trend and majority of the clubs are having the same trend. So it's not like it's your district alone. But your district actually has been leading the zone 29 in membership. So your efforts are doing a lot of good. So what I also like to do, I'm going to kind of briefly talk about what we did at Plano West Rotary. I know this is a repeat to some that are on, but like I said, we're recording. And so we were a traditional Rotary Club and we had the traditional trends. And then through changing our focus, we actually were able to really grow. We tripled in membership and then maintain it and put a lot of structure in. And the way we did that was through service. And I also like demonstrating how our demographics changed. It wasn't just about adding members, but it was having the club represent the community, in terms of we went, from 14% women to 52% women. And typically in the United States, 51% of the population are women. So everybody should be majority women if you're representing your community. So that was always our goal. We need to represent Plano. Same thing, Plano is a very diverse community. So now we're majority minority of all different, and we were able to drop the age from a median age of 67 to 50. And so that's kind of what grabs a lot of people's attention. How did you do that? And how did you do that during the pandemic? Because we all like to use a pandemic as an excuse, but it doesn't have to be, and we did it through service. And we happened to do 81 service projects that year. And so what kind of just run through that beginning. And so what I'm doing now, my role is I'm an innovative club advocate, and I'm also an assistant Rotary coordinator. And I work with both zone pairs on helping basically districts doing what you're doing. And so this is a message that Rotary has me speaking out and helping all over. And one of the things I like doing, because I'm a business coach, I always focus on the mission. You have to have a mission, and that kind of is your guiding light. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of Rotarians don't know what our mission is. They don't know that our mission as a global organization, and has been for years, we provide service to others. It's what we do is there, and we promote integrity, advanced world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. And I always like pointing that out because what I'm talking about isn't new. It's actually our mission. We just don't follow it. Some people would think we provide fellowship of business. They think that's our mission, is to do fellowship. No, that's not who we are. We're a service organization, and we do all this through our fellowship, because if we aren't one happy big family, we're not going to be productive. And so that's where the Grow Rotary Through Service, which is really mission focused. Anybody in the military knows it's all about the mission. And so part of my goal is to get Rotary back on our mission, and so we can achieve the great things we can do. Now, today, what we're going to talk about, it's actually one of the key components of success for Rotary Club, and it was for Plano West Rotary, is partnering with nonprofits. And I like to start off with August 21, was 2 years ago. There was an article in the Rotary magazine, and it was the August, and they did a 4-page centerfold on Plano West Rotary. And if you go look back, and what it talks about, and I kind of like to share the beginning of the growth of Plano West Rotary and kind of tell a little story. we had formed a Rotary Community Corps, which what that is it's an organization of non-Rotarian volunteers that work with the Rotary Club to do service in the community. Well, we formed our Rotary Community Corps around, it was called is still the Rotary Community Corps of Plano Douglas Community. And the Douglas community was a former slave town that's now a neighborhood in Plano. Plano is a very wealthy community. It's one of the wealthiest large cities in America. Large meaning over 100,000, it's 300,000. But the Douglas community had the highest level of poverty and also had the most diversity. And so we had partnered with a community development organization to help them serve the Douglas community, which is about 180 homes of Black and Hispanic families. And so, and this was just before the Rotary year started. And this was at the same time that the George Floyd situation was happening. Well, part of the reason why this was important to me is one, I'm Black, but two, I'm not a protester. That's not my thing, but I wanted to have an impact. And that's why I felt a way of fighting institutional racism is helping those that are victims of it. And that's where the Rotary Community Corps was doing. And that was my way, because I happen to be in a position of president of a Rotary Club, that I can actually have an impact on that situation. And so that's where this Rotary Community Corps idea came. Well, it all started, and this is the interesting thing, how we started our growth is we were in July, nothing was really happening with the community corps. So I called the president, I'm like, hey, remember we talked about doing something together? He's like, can we? And I'm like, can we help? He's like, you guys are willing to help? I go, well, that's why we formed this RCC. He's like, well, we're delivering meals to the families, and they received it from a food bank. And he goes, we just did it last Wednesday, and it took us 8 hours. I'm like, holy moly, why? He's like, well, there's only 3 of us. So if you could bring a couple other people, that would be helpful. I'm like, yeah, we could do that. And so I went back to the club, told them about it. And I'm like, hey, we could help the Douglas community. We just show up on Wednesday night. How many want to help? And nobody wanted to help. So I'm like, okay. So I started texting friends. And so I think I had 4 or 5 people show up. So we took that down, delivered those meals. We got it done in like 3 hours. So then 2 weeks later, doing the same project, and went back to my club, and nobody wanted to help again. So I told the people who came, bring a person. So we had like probably 10, 15 people show up, delivered the meals in less than 2 hours. Well, then finally, my Rotary Club is like, you're still doing that? I'm like, yeah, we have 15 people show up. Really? Yeah, it's a Rotary project. And they're like, well, what do we have to do? Just show up and deliver food. And like, we don't have to be part of the planning. No, everything's taken care of. Well, then everybody started getting into it. But the key of it was what we were doing was serving the community. We're partnering with an organization, and we all had a general cause. So the people that were showing were just people in the community, not my club, because my club median age is 67. A lot of them didn't want to show up and deliver food anyway. But like I tell everybody, you only need one Rotarian to make it a Rotary project. But we were recruiting people through the project on behalf of Rotary to help. So I like using that as an intro, in that we were just a 21-person club. The majority of the club didn't want to get involved, but we were partnering with a nonprofit, and that's how we got the community involved. And the biggie is the partnership. And so a lot of challenges that Rotary clubs have is they're not really good at partnering. We're good at writing checks and then celebrating a check, but a partnership is, especially when you're partnering with a nonprofit, they're really the lead person. We're just the grunts, we're the help. We're helping, collaborating, sharing, assisting, participating, supporting, not trying to lead it, but just trying to help. And so oftentimes when I work with districts on how they're like, well, how do we partner with a nonprofit? They just aren't used to partnering with another organization, and they don't know what to do. And I always like, it's actually pretty simple, but when talking to people, they're not used to just saying, how can we help? They feel that Rotary has to be in charge, lead the way, we're big bad Rotary. And in fact, if you read that article I was showing, I even said in there, we just said, told organizations, we want to help. And they're like, really? Like, yeah, just tell us how we need help. So what I want to do here is kind of give like a step plan of how to make it easy for a club to partner with a nonprofit. And then have you give me some examples of nonprofits that you could possibly work with. And so the plan, it's really simple. It breaks down into the approach, then the message, and then the follow through. And that's like the basis of what the partnership could be. So, for example, the first one on the approach, the first thing you have to identify is, do you have relationships with organizations? We say nonprofits, but I also count municipality and school districts. That's who we partnership. You know, when people ask, who do we partner with? 501c3s and cities, school districts, because once you start going outside of 501c3s, it gets complex on motives and so on, and also C4s. And so the question is, how difficult is it to partner with a city? Well, it's easy. You know, cities need help. We have like I said, our community is 300,000 people. It's a very well established, you know, everything is in place. But our city reaches out to our Rotary Club to help them with initiatives. They have a whole division on volunteer services. And all they do, they have a whole, you know, community program of bringing in the volunteers, but they still come to us for it. And so every Rotary Club is part of a city. And so how difficult is it for that Rotary Club to ask their city, how can we help? A good example, almost every city has a trash pickup program. Like if I ask here, does anybody have a city with a trash pickup program? Yes, no, speak up, turn your mics on. Okay, we call it adopt a highway. What do you, Eric, what does your city call it? Turn that mic on. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Adopt a highway, yeah.
Very good. Is your Rotary Club a part of it?
Not ours. The other one locally was. So I think we could up that one easily.
You could have multiple people be a part of it. We have to pay a fee once a year. We get a couple signs that say Plano West Rotary Club, and we have a strip of highway. And every other month, we get volunteers that go out to do it. And we cap it at 10, because if it gets more than 10, then gets done in like 30 minutes. You know, well, the majority of those we usually have 1 or 2 people from our club there, and that's good. A lot of people, when I say this, they're like, why do you say this? I'd rather have as little as possible club members at a service project. Do you know why that's the case? Anybody? Turn your mics on, speak. Because the club members are already in the club. I'm trying to recruit new Rotarians. And so if I have a bunch of club members if I only have 10 spots and they're all filled up with club members, well, then how am I going to have an opportunity for a non-club member to volunteer through Rotary? So I'm happy with just 1 or 2 Rotarians, because that gives me 8 spots to fill with non-Rotarians. And there's a lot of people that have a passion for the environment. And it's not like, because you say, oh, we're picking up trash. Well, that sounds kind of like blah. But say, hey, we're trying to protect the environment. You know, Avenue K, that's the one where you see how it is, we're picking up. And people like that, you know, and so we get a lot of people in the community that volunteer. We actually have people outside of Plano that would sign up for our trash pickup just because they wanted to make a difference, and they didn't know of other opportunities to volunteer. Why? Nobody asked. That's every city has trash pickup.
The same rules in every administration. First,
and then also most communities that it goes beyond trash pickup. It can also do parks, riverbeds, or creek beds. I know our community does. So you can, as an organization, you could partner with the city, and they'll even let you identify a neighborhood and do a trash pickup, and they'll provide all the material, the bags, the pickup sticks. And I'm pretty sure most cities will allow you to do that. That's a very easy opportunity to partner. And this is what's beautiful about partnering. All you're doing is showing up and doing the work. They already have all the, it doesn't cost you a penny because the city provides it all. You know, and so we love doing pickup or basically cleanup projects with the city, because all we need to do is just get the volunteers there. And so that's our focus, getting the volunteers there. School districts are the best organization to partner with if you want to recruit to your Rotary Club. Do you know why? Anybody?
Students.
No. Well, students can't join your Rotary Club. So no, I'm not talking about getting students. That's another thing. When you have like interactors volunteer for your projects, well, none of them are going to join your club. You're not going to grow. You want to get the adults. Because keep in mind, our end goal is to grow an organization. So you need to get people that are going to be able to join. But partnering with your school district is important, because when you partner with the school district, who mothers have the greatest value of anything that happens in a school district. So when you do a project, whatever it is for the school district, and let the community know they can volunteer, you're going to have mothers coming out of the woodwork because they care about the school district. And the fact that your Rotary Club is working with the school district makes your club look good and the school district's happy. And so we have done so many projects with the school districts. I think we have at least over 10% of our club are school district employees that found out about us because of the projects we do with the school district. Because they're like, hell yeah, we want to help, because school district employees also want to help the school district. And one of the things that we did that really made an impact, and I'm sure your school districts are the same, they have free meal programs. Well, during certain days, they have families can come by and pick up meals. And well, typically, do you know who's there handing these meals to the families in their cars? Anybody?
I'm going to guess teachers.
Teachers. Now, is that what teachers signed up to do? And are they just bored, so they just had free time to be delivering food? No. So our club worked with the school district. So we provided volunteers at all their meal, what they call it, meal drive-throughs. So teachers and administrators could educate. So we're out there delivering food while they're doing their job, because I'd rather them do their job. Well, what happens? The school district loves us, because what did we want for all this? Nothing. We asked for nothing. We just wanted to help them. And when we did that consistently, they saw us as a valid partner. We're the only nonprofit in the city of Plano that's able to volunteer and help the school district. Because most nonprofits, when they work with the school district, they want something. They want to give information to the students or something, always having the hands out. We're just like, we just want to help. And so therefore, that's the reputation we have. Well, that is something that every Rotary Club could do. You know, we do a lot with the youth, which is great, but help the school district and some of their challenges. You know, another example, all school districts, they usually have a backpack supply program at the beginning of the school year. Ask them if they need any help. They need any help collecting supplies. Do they need any help delivering the supplies? Usually it's a great big back to school thing. They need manpower. Let your Rotary Club be that manpower. And so when you work through your city and your school district, then you become known in the community as an organization that's trying to make an impact. And then all those officials are also saying, wow, that Rotary Club is pretty great. I mean, do you see how simple this is? It's not complex at all. And here I just named some other organizations that apply to almost any city. If you look at the chart, like, you have any homeless? Do you have any homeless people in Wisconsin? You know, homeless shelters need so much help, it's unreal. You know, especially, we have a situation where the few nights it gets cold, you know, it's here in Texas, but when it gets below freezing, You know who suffers the most? The homeless. And so we have warming stations. And so we have club members, or actually not club members, but volunteers that have gone through training. So on those freeze nights, they are on the list so they could be called and work in the warming stations. I know you guys have freezing nights in Wisconsin, and I guarantee you guys have warming stations. Well, why can't a Rotary Club be part of that process? You don't have to invent the wheel. They just need bodies. And so that was the secret to our success. Instead of trying to invent some great project, we just provided bodies to projects that are already in place. We look at food banks. You guys have any food banks? They always need help. They need help. They always need manpower. Somebody's got to pack the food. A lot of times they get it in bulk and they repackage it. If you go to their websites, they will tell you all their volunteer opportunities. Well, have your Rotary Club register on their website to be a part of one of their volunteer opportunities. Then you create a service project where you're recruiting the public to volunteer through your Rotary Club at the food bank. Any questions? I've kind of thrown some examples out. Half the screen, I'd love for people to turn their cameras on. As a speaker, there's nothing worse than when you see a bunch of blank screens. So if we get some engagement out of people, then it makes it kind of fun. So I'm going to pick on Doug, Marita, Wally, John, and Sharon, because Diane's already got her other camera on. There we go. So I would love to find out if you guys have, I have some examples on the screen, some nonprofits that your Rotary Club could partner with. Turn your mics on, speak up. It's more fun when everybody speaks.
We're considering Habitat for Humanity.
Do you know they're actually a strategic partner with Rotary International?
Excellent. Yeah,
And
but
it's interesting about Habitat is, they always need help.
yeah,
So John, have you done it before?
in terms of working with Habitat,
Yes.
I have not. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But some of these others, we're a small community up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but the idea, I think, of just offering help to the school district, the municipalities, the food banks. This is my first year in Rotary, so I'm kind of learning from the fire hose.
Actually, Rotarians, I've been in Rotary 20 years. We can learn from you, because it's nice to have somebody with fresh ideas, a fresh look, and not stuck on this is the way we've always. Anybody's been in Rotary for a long time, isn't that? Well, we've never done it that way, or this is the way we've always done it. So we get somebody like John that's like, well, what about this? Why not? And then they'll say, well, you have to do it. He says, okay. Then you got some great idea.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, Alex. One of the first notes I wrote down was offer warm bodies, and I think that's super easy because all the planning and organization, that's the nonprofit. And so I'm definitely going to bring this up at our next meeting.
That's awesome.
The communities, we're low unemployment, people are working, but there's certainly always needs. And food banks, I think, is another good one. Our club is growing, but we could grow even more. So these are great suggestions.
And the magic is, a lot of times clubs feel that their members have to be those warm bodies. No, let your community be those warm bodies. And your members are the ones that greet them, that encourage them. Let your members be the leaders of the organ, and let the members of the community participate. And if they like it, they will join you. They will be part of the team. And so that's the secret, is you got to get non-Rotarians involved in it. And what's powerful is when you partner, like, for example, Habitat, a lot of people, they're based on volunteerism. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of passion for Habitat. Well, when Rotary shows up with a bunch of volunteers to help out Habitat, people get a lot of joy out of volunteering with both Rotary and Habitat at the same time. And they're like, you know, I could join Rotary and still help out a habitat. Of course you can, and other things as well. So that synergy is really powerful. Anybody else? Do you have any nonprofits that your club has a relationship with?
I have a
Alex?
question regarding the demographics of the non-Rotarians that you work with. You know, we have in our club, we have attorneys, we have undertakers, we have accountants, we have professional people. And the question that isn't raised verbally, but do we want those kinds of people to be handing out food and sorting socks and that sort of stuff? And among
Yes.
the demographics of the people that are non-Rotarians, what are you finding? Where do they come from in the demographics?
They come from the community.
Okay,
They
but
have a
are they
passion for the
potential
project
Rotary
that's
people?
going on. Rotary people are the community. Don't they live there? They're just like everybody else. They just happen to join Rotary. So people in the community have a passion for the project and they volunteer on it. There's no distinction. You know, I've been in Rotary for 20 years. I look just like anybody else. You know, and if I'm interested in a project and actually more the impact it's making, we volunteer. So in terms of demographic of the volunteers, if you're volunteering for a school district, most likely it's going to be women, and they're going to bring their kids to volunteer with them because they already have a passion for the school district. I know our city manager joined a Rotary Club in June. He was actually my last meeting, and he was one of my inductees. And I told him, because I've known him for almost 20 years, and I'm like, hey, Mark, we got the cleanup for your city. You better at least show up and do that. And he's like, can I bring my kids? I go, of course. So he brings his kids and he's part of our trash pickup, you know, which is funny because it's his staff that coordinates it all. But he felt it was important for, as a city manager, to be a part of it and volunteer and bring his family. Yeah, in theory, he could be all uppity and say, I'm too good to pick up trash. We've got a club, our founder of our club, he is, how old is Tom? I think Tom is like 84. He shows up for at least 50% of them. He's out there picking up trash. And he founded our club like 40 something years ago. Francis, I see your question, your virtual hand up there.
Hi, Alex. How are
Hi there.
you?
Doing awesome.
Good. We partner with the school district on something called JJ Packs. They put together meal packets for children who don't have food at home for the weekends or over the holidays. But the difference I'm hearing you say is when we go do that, we go there as members of our club. So we're only mixing with the people who manage the program. So that's a little bit different. And then for the homeless shelter, it's more of a providing socks and providing mittens and providing hats because you heard from Iron Mountain. I'm up in Marquette and it's cold here in the winter. So those are the kind of things we've been doing. But
So what you can do on the
Yeah.
one where you put the kits for the school district,
Yeah.
what you do is your club does all the work and the club shows up and does it, right? Well,
yeah,
just how you ask your club members, well, now ask people in your community on your public image, say, hey, we're collecting hygiene information, hygiene materials for the school district. Come drop it off here. And of course, you guys have drop-off spots. So people in the community are participating. So they're like, wow, Rotary's helping the school district. And then you can have another project. We are going to show up at the school, and I don't know the details of your project, but if you need manpower, let the community know. Hey, do you want to help deliver the hygiene kits? Sign up here. So they sign up through your Rotary Club. You may have 2 Rotarians and 8 non-Rotarians, and then you guys go to the school together. Give them t-shirts. Here, I'll show you. I don't use this that often. This is, there we go. If you look behind me, the yellows were the old ones. Now we have the blue ones, and all our volunteers get them only when you volunteer. So when we show up, you've got everybody in these blue shirts that say Plano West Rotary, properly branded. majority of them aren't even Rotarians. But when people show up at a project, they see all these blue people, they think they're all in Rotary, and they're like, wow, we get to be a part of it because we give them a t-shirt, and they covet it and they bring it. So you're recruiting people from the community through your club to help the school district, and they're all showing up in blue t-shirts. So it's like, wow, Rotary's amazing. And they're already feeling like they're part of the Rotary family. And the thing is, don't ask them to join. That's one of Rotary's biggest problems. Every time we see somebody, join. It's like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like dating. You know, I always tell everybody, joining Rotary is marriage. You need to date before you ask somebody to marry you. So let them show up at your service projects. Hey, get to know people, have a couple dates. And then if they're still interested, well, then you say, let's get married. But to me, say, hi, Francis, I'm Alex, let's get married. You're like, you're kind of creepy. You know, I don't know you. And so I always wait till somebody shows up at our project, usually the third time. I'm like, you're a regular. you know, you could join, really, can I? And they usually say, I don't have time. And I go,
Okay.
well, you're doing what a Rotarian does already. What do you mean? You're at a service project. That's the only thing we want. Rotaries, they're like, well, I don't have time for the meetings. I'm like, well, don't go. I mean, that's not where we're changing lives. We need you to do what you're already doing. So once you let people know that Rotary is more than this meeting you have to go through every week, and it's really about serving in the community, then Rotary seems a little more accessible to them. And if they're already doing the project, they're like, oh, well, this is all I have to do? Well, this isn't a big deal. Yeah, just keep on showing up and helping other people with us.
Do you use social media to get the invite and to let people know? What sort of media
Extensively.
do you use to recruit people for these projects?
Isn't that one of our webinars?
Yep,
So-
that's gonna be the focus of session 3. So in 2 weeks, Dennis, come back and that's gonna be the focus.
Okay, thank you.
Use social media extensively. I mean, that's because John Huco, our international general counsel, you know, he says Rotary is a business. For him, it is. It's a $130 million business. And for a club, it is. We make our revenue through members. And all businesses do marketing and sales. And that's what public image is. Well, we have to let the community know what our product is. And our product is community service. It's not attending meetings. We don't change lives at meetings. We change lives at service projects. And we need to let the community know that we're changing lives. So you do that through social media. But the key is the social media has to give them a call to action. And that call to action is sign up for the service project. You know, a lot of times we use social media to have, this is like the worst thing you could do, and most clubs do it. They have a picture with a big check. Say, look, we gave. Nobody's going to join an organization where you have to write big checks. That's not very exciting. But if your social media says, hey, click this link and sign up and help, that's like no pressure and everybody wants to help. Roger.
Alex, I have to tell you that if you came to Wisconsin and we could tax your enthusiasm, we would balance our state budget. Now, my point is that a project that would involve very few Rotarians and engage emotion would be paying the school lunch bills of poor, marginalized students that are cut off from student lunches at schools throughout our state, which
But
I
the challenge
believe
with that is you aren't engaging the public. Nobody's going to say, here, let me give you money so you can write a check. We want hands-on sweat equity projects because you can always write checks. We are the greatest organization for writing checks. We write more checks to everybody else than we do our own nonprofit called the Rotary Foundation. We're talking and nobody wants to join to write checks. We want projects where we could do hands-on, and that's what people like to do. Like, think about it. Anybody that goes to church, people like doing missions, right? You spend money, you go to another country to do a mission. And why do you do that? Because you want to see the person you're helping, right? Well, do a mission in your backyard. There are so many people that need help in your community. Get people to show up and they get to see the people that they're helping. It's a lot cheaper and faster than going to another country. And so that's what I'm promoting. A Rotary Club does mission projects in their own community, and they partner with organizations that are already doing it. If you go to any nonprofit, they will tell you they need volunteers. Well, let your Rotary Club be that. And it's easy. Like, for example, I think, Marita, did you have a question? I thought you looked like you were trying to say something.
No, I'll be happy to say something though, but I don't want to take us off topic. I was just going to say that in Manistee, Michigan, which is a small community, we found that working with the hockey parents that were trying to get a hockey team together was a super way of getting younger people into the club when they had a chance to see that we were interested. And it's helped to develop the team to the point that they're now actually doing pretty darn well.
Excellent.
So it was a real win-win, and I think more of the activities we can think of in our community, which is also an aging community, to be working with younger people and in the schools is really important. Here in Ann Arbor, which is where I am a past member of Rotary for many years, we attracted people to our club by saying, bring your project along. If you've got a project, you belong in Rotary. We want to find other members who are interested in this, or we want to bring in new people with new ideas. The trick in all of that was we had about 30 projects running, and every one of those members considered themselves a committee. So it becomes quite a matter of herding cats when you go at it in that direction. But that was a really helpful way of, especially if people have ideas and they're not quite sure how to actualize them in a community, to be able to bring them in to talk about it at Rotary. We've got, as one of you was mentioning, a lot of professional people in our organizations that can also sometimes help actualize those activities in a community.
Excellent. And the key is you're getting the community involved. That's Doug. You had a question, even though your screen is turned off. There we go.
Hey, I'm Doug's wife, Anita. Hi.
Doug's wife, even better.
Yeah, he's sitting here beside me, but I just wondered if you had any tips on when we're going to invite the public, a day of the week or a time where it's most successful to get people. I'm finding a lot of volunteer opportunities are during the day. It interrupts my work schedule. So I'd appreciate what your thoughts.
Well, on that session 3 weeks from now, it's because it's on social media, they're clicking when they are available. You know, because the projects are determined by the organization, you really don't have a say in that. You're just bringing bodies. And so a lot like school district stuff, a lot of times it's during the day. So only people that can do it, but we, as a Rotary Club, we can't control it because it's a school district project. But a lot of nonprofit organizations purposely put their projects on the weekends or nights because they know that's when they're going to get the most volunteers. So basically, you're partnering with the nonprofit and you're working off of their schedule, but you're just using the power of Rotary of bringing the community in to help them. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yep. Thank you very much.
But the social media aspect is what makes it easy. People look at social media whenever they want. You know, if it's on Facebook, they might look at Facebook at 2 in the morning and they like the project, they'll click the link and sign up at 2 in the morning. We don't care. As long as, you know, that's what's cool about social media. It's always out there. Your website is always out there and people sign up when it's convenient. Did we have other questions? None. Well, oh, go ahead.
Hey, Alex, I'm just, can you stop sharing for just a minute? Because I want to see your background larger, your.
How's that?
Okay, I want to see what it looks like. Oh, very cool.
The blue
Very
shirts. So
Yeah.
now lots of people use them.
Very cool. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. And so what I'd like is, these are some examples and we kind of talk, but the key is not really me talking, but you doing. And so what I want is everybody on this webinar to identify a nonprofit that they think their club could potentially partner with. And we're not going to move forward till everybody speaks up. And John already did it. He got one.
Our
So,
club is partnering with Foster the Village, which provides clothing for foster parents who, the foster will take in young children. And so we are meeting in a couple of weeks. We're going to the site and we're going to be educated as to the possibility of how we can, on an individual basis, work with them. And we partnered with them last year on our fundraiser. They got half of the money. They helped bring people to a Kentucky Derby fundraiser. But
So
they
Dennis,
got
this is
they
the magic of that. This is how I want, see if you could get your club to look at it differently. They're going to tell you what you need to do. Then your club wants to reach out to the community. So the community does it with your club. That's what's going to give you the growth. And so if you already have that relationship, you're going to create a project that's just collecting volunteers from the community. Then you're going to go work with the nonprofit. Does that make sense?
Okay, yep.
That's the twist that everybody thinks of. Our club's got to do everything. Well, we've been doing that for 117 years and look where it has us. It's not about the club doing everything. It's the club leading the community to do everything. Francis, what's a nonprofit that your club could partner with?
That's what I was just trying to think of. So we've got the school, we have a community playground. I don't know, Alex, I'm trying to think who else we could partner with.
Think of a sweat equity. Well, think of it.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for you to think of the project because that's the
Yeah.
nonprofit's job.
Yeah.
Just think
Right.
of a nonprofit. Or here's another question. Do
Yeah.
you have any area in your community that has a need? People need help.
Well, of course,
And are there nonprofits that are trying to help them?
yes,
Well, then there we go.
there we go. Maybe some of the food banks.
Unless you have a community that doesn't need any help and everybody's just doing well, everybody has a nonprofit to partner with. And they would
I know
love
one of
to
them,
partner with
one of them
Rotary.
I can think of is the food bank that's at the university, because it's alarming how many students are food deprived because they don't have the money for it.
Exactly. A lot
So
of
that would be
families.
one.
Excellent. Eric.
Yeah, I put a couple actually in the chat because I was thinking out loud. We do already what's called a green circle pickup. So it's like adopt a section of our green circle.
Perfect.
And we're doing the backpacks at our school. But what I want to add on is there's a couple other, there's certainly more organizations that we could partner with. And what I really liked about what you were telling us was, it's more than just a few Rotarians showing up. I mean, that's what we do right now is we show up with our small group, like we sign up a group for what's called Empty Bowls. We help in events like that for the hungry. But that reaching out to other people in the community who would like to volunteer, or maybe are just sort of interested in volunteering and just kind of volunteering with them, really, that inspires me.
Awesome. And its key is don't try to recruit them in the Rotary. Once you make it into a recruiting pitch, then it's no longer helping. Then you've got an ulterior motive. You don't want people to think you have an ulterior motive. We just want to help. When people love being around other people with a heart. So it's like, just help us. Do I need to join? No, just make sure you keep on volunteering with us. And then they'll end up wanting to join.
Yeah, we're completely guilty of that. I can't tell you how many times we've been at things where it's like suddenly the Rotarians are swarming people and saying, please join us.
It's the worst thing. I see that. I'll go to somebody, I'll say, so how many times has somebody asked you to join Rotary? Yeah, 6. I go, well, I'm not going to ask you. We were good. Diane, you are our first guest of the night. Both of you.
Well, for me, I have a nonprofit. It's called Serenity Station. My partner and I have a 30-acre ranch with horses and donkeys, miniature donkeys, and a few other small animals. And what we've done over the years is we have partnered with other nonprofits such as Curative Workshop or CP, where the young children will come out and ride the horses. And of course, it's a little bit riding the horses for the young ones is hippotherapy, but to watch the parents and the grandparents face of delight when they see their grandchild or child on a horse having a wonderful time. And
So
at
has
that
your
point,
Rotary Club partnered with that nonprofit?
we're having the Rotary Club, it's their presentation will go to them the 4th of February.
This sounds
My-
complicated. It shouldn't be
What-
that complicated. Don't you guys need volunteers and get your Rotary Club to bring some warm bodies?
This is the beginning of it. The volunteers that came before came from my friends and my family did it. Now we want to expand it to get Rotary and have the Rotary people enjoy it, see why it's so neat to watch and be part of, and have them go out and bring their families or whoever would like to come and participate.
Because ideally, they wouldn't bring their families, but they bring their friends. Most families or Rotarians aren't going to join Rotary. Because keep in mind, here our goal is to get people to join Rotary. And so the partnerships that we have are a vehicle to get the public involved. And so that's the thing. We focus on Rotarians to get their families. Families never join. It took my wife 17 years to join Rotary. You know, it's like, but your friends, you know, so if your Rotary Club takes that as a project, then they go out and get the community and show up in force with a bunch of volunteers. And that would be exciting, especially because it's your nonprofit as well. I think Marita, I already called on you, right? You identified one earlier. Okay, Sharon.
Yeah, so I mean, our club has done stuff with the city, I think very aligned with highway cleanup, and like Eric's club, the Green Circle Trail in Stevens Point, we do maintenance there. We ring bells for Salvation Army. One of the things we're just been introduced to is a project to raise medical supplies, winter clothing, etc., to get shipped over to Ukraine. And we would do it in a one-day effort of having a large container be filled at a local grocery store. So I think our club's willing to do a lot, to roll up our sleeves and participate.
So my question is this, see, that's the thing. It's not about your club doing it.
Right.
How can you take that project and get people from the community in?
Exactly. Yep. And the other thing too is I think with our school district, there's a lot of untapped things that we could be doing there. So got some good ideas tonight.
Like I said, the nice thing about the school district, the mothers in your community are going to volunteer.
Mhm.
And
Right.
if they can volunteer and not have to go through the PTA, they're going to be happy. It's less political and hassle. Because everybody knows PTA is very militaristic. And so people could just volunteer, get in and out. And that's another thing. Keep your projects 2 hours or less. Don't make 4 or 5 hour projects. That's not really conducive to people to be a part of it. How about who else? I think we've got everybody. Nancy, yeah, are you going to participate?
I will participate. So our club is one of those clubs that's probably done more check writing than manpower. But I see that that's changing. We recently did a food packing with Feeding America, our local Feeding America location, and that is taking bulk, big bins of food and packaging it for food banks. We have not cracked that nut of bringing in other people to come and help us volunteer. So typically,
remember I told you how we started it? It started with nobody from my club wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I had promised that we will help them. So I texted people I know. I said, hey, I didn't even say, I go, can you show up and help me deliver food to people in Douglas community? All of us must have some friends. If you have a friend that wants to volunteer or wants to help other people, have them show up at the project. I mean, that's how simple it is. People want to make it. Whenever someone tells me they're going to have a meeting, I'm like, whoa. If you're trying to have a meeting, it's way too complex. It doesn't have to be. All you have to do is get people to show up that want to help. You don't need a meeting to do that, because a nonprofit is doing all the planning. They just need someone to show up at a certain time. So even though your club is a check writing club, that's fine. I know of one person in your club that's willing to do a sweat equity project. Her name's Nancy. It only takes one Rotarian to be there. So if Nancy brings a friend who not in Rotary, well, there we go. That's the beginning of it. I mean, it's that simple. Once you try to have meetings and planning sessions, then it becomes a typical Rotary fiasco. I mean, we're really proud of our meetings. We love meetings. Well, that's not our mission. Our mission is to serve. So serve first and then do all the meetings afterwards. Because what's our mission? Provide service to others. The fellowship's at the bottom. Well, that was all the first step. The first step is to identify who you can have relationships with. In Rotary clubs that write a lot of checks, they have a lot of relationships. Every organization that you write a check to, you know they need volunteers, but they're so used to you giving them money, they don't even think of you that way. We're just like Daddy Warbucks. That's what Rotary, oh, we're so good. We donated. And anybody hears me and they say, we're great Rotarians because we write checks. That's like saying I'm a great Christian because I tithe. We know that's not how it works. You know, it's the works that makes you a Christian. It's the works that makes you a Rotarian. Writing a check is just for those that can. And so, but when your club writes a check, it has relationships with nonprofits. Well, say, hey, can we help you? And they're going to say, well, yeah, we need X amount of dollars. Well, no, can we physically help you? You guys do that? I didn't think you did. Well, yeah, of course we did. You know, and that's how it starts. Well, the second thing is the ask. You identified it. Now, what I said is, how can we help you? That's the question. You know, not how can we write you a check? I mean, we got to get this check writing out of Rotary's mentality, because that's not part of our mission at all. The only nonprofit we're supposed to write a check to is called the Rotary Foundation. And so we need to help provide service to others and write the checks to our nonprofit, which is one of the greatest nonprofits in the world. So let's make good use of that money instead of just spreading it out and get people out there to help. And so if you just go to them and say, how can we help? That's what makes the big difference. Are we frozen? Are you guys, it seems like everybody was frozen for a moment. Nope, we're all good. And so then you could think of potential ways you can help. And these are just some examples. And now this is the key. It's almost like, anybody ever been involved in a global grant? You know, you have to have a needs assessment. And what Rotary doesn't want you to do is go to the organization and recommend a project. You're supposed to have the organization do their own needs assessment. Then you decide where you could fit in. And so when I was creating this chart, I was like, you know, I'm kind of encouraging them to go out and tell somebody how they can help. But I was just giving this as an example. You go to that nonprofit and say, how can we help you? Where do you need help? We're talking in terms of sweat equity. You got to be very clear, because they're so used to Rotarians when to write a check. You got to change that paradigm. And Rotarians can't help but think that way. Who can we write a check to? We're going to do so much good. Well, it's like, what church can I tithe to? I'm such a great Christian. No, let's do some good with our hands and help them. Say, how can we help you with sweat equity? And then you could go to these different, these are like, everybody has junior achievement. Are you guys familiar with junior achievement? All they need are volunteers. That's all they want. Well, they have companies that write them big checks, but they need volunteers that are willing to work with high schoolers, middle schoolers. I was a junior achievement volunteer for years. Well, we created a service project out of it. They needed volunteers to do career talks with the kids. So we created a service project, recruited people from the community through us, and then we assigned them up with junior achievement. That's simple. And some of them were from our club, but we had more people from the community that wanted to do it. Some of them joined Rotary, some of them didn't. We didn't care, but we were providing a service. Everybody has junior achievement. You know, I already talked about the homeless coalition and our warming station. The American Legion, we partnered with them. We wanted to do something with the veteran organization. Well, what they do is they do collect coats for kids of veterans every Christmas. So we created a project where we were collecting coats from people in the public, and they were dropping them off. And then we also went with the American Legion when they were delivered to, actually it went through the VA, I think. Well, people really enjoyed doing that. So they went through our club to help them, but we didn't go to the American Legion and say, hey, do you need coats for kids? No, I called up the president. I said, we're Rotary. how can we help you? Do you guys need help on anything? Do you have any projects? And when they understand that you really just want to help and you don't want something else in return, then they can start brainstorming. Well, we really could use this, really could use that. And so that's where I find Rotary, I say club, but they're individuals, have a challenge making that ask. They feel uncomfortable going to that nonprofit and saying, how can we help? And this is usually why, because they're like, well, what if nobody from my club wants to do it? We don't want to let down a nonprofit. The nonprofit won't be let down. You know, the fact that you're asking is the first step. And then start small. Say, hey, if we provide 5 people, will that help? Well, you're one. If you get 4 other people, you're good. Well, then that's a start. Kind of like that's why I started with that example. Nobody from my club wanted to do it. I was the only one. It took 3 sessions, which was 6 weeks, for them to finally show up when they saw it was already going. And that's how a lot of Rotarians are. They don't want to be involved in the planning. They don't want to make a commitment, but they'll show up if it's only for a couple hours and go home. So be a part of that. So I would like some ideas from you of what your club could do. Not what you're already doing, but what can you do differently? We want to change the paradigm. Any volunteers, Eric Yonke?
One thing we did, which
No, I don't want what we did. I want what you can do.
what we can do is when a street is being reconstructed and the businesses along the street are deprived of customers, we can go to the newspaper and get an editorial to say everybody, like the Rotarians, should shop especially at those places because they need to be solvent and successful. And to get,
I think that's a great idea, but my question, Dennis, is that going to recruit people to your Rotary Club?
I don't know, but we sure as hell did good stuff for the community.
Well, but this is all about growing Rotary. So when we come up, how are we going to get people in the community to volunteer through your Rotary Club? Because there's a lot of great things we could do, but this particular is, how can we grow a club? And so when you think of these ideas, how are they getting other people involved, sweat equity to be involved? Because that's when people want to join Rotary, when they can do something and be a part of the family. And so think of that idea, but then how can you recruit the community to be active in it? Because just telling them to buy, no one's going to join Rotary. Oh, we think you should go shop at this place. They're like, oh, okay. Chamber of Commerce's do that all the time, but you're not going to gain members that way. But I think that's important. I'm a small business owner, but how about an idea where we could get people involved? Like Eric, you got your mic on.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, what you've got me thinking about is how to partner with some other groups, but also just how to be the volunteer organizer. So I think what we could do differently is, in some respects, you know, we can choose a lot of everything, like you said, a warming shelter or Salvation Army. We could choose one of these and find an opportunity. And then I think it's maybe for us to really change gears here a bit and use that as an opportunity to be reaching out to the broader community, just to invite people to participate in that event and participate in that particular action. And that's new for us. You know, that's something we've really ever tried.
And you hit it exactly. If you think of my first example, all our social media, everything said, first it was talking about help provide food for those in the Douglas community, help those in need, click this button to sign up. Anybody. We just said that was what we were pitching, help the community. We didn't pitch Rotary. Some people would say, well, we need to talk about Rotary more. No, this isn't about Rotary. This is about helping those in need. And then that's what resonates with people. They just want to help. Well, when they help through Rotary and they get a free t-shirt and they have to sign a Rotary waiver, they know it's through Rotary. You don't have to hard sell Rotary. We're the organizer, but just like you said, our club is the organizer of service projects. We organize the manpower for it. So that was a great example there. Anybody else? Any idea you have on how your club could do something differently? But keep in mind, our goal is to get the public involved to do the work. We're leading the public to do the work. Roger.
I would suggest that, returning back to Dennis Rader's comment, that he hit an issue of public imaging that was a home run, because he demonstrated Rotary's concern for small business impacted by a highway closure, and every single one of them probably is positively impressed by Rotary and has potential for membership. I
Well,
think
the
that's an
potential isn't doing
outstanding-
us any good. We got to get people doing something. Rotary
Well,
does all these
joining
potential
Rotary.
things for all these years, but our membership isn't growing. Here we're talking about getting people to show up. When they show up, then they feel like they're part of the problem. Like, you're right, it's an important issue. Chambers of Commerce has pushed that nonstop. That's part of their mission. So it's a very important issue. But we need to get people to do sweat equity through your Rotary Club. So what ideas? Go for it.
17,
Okay,
located in Biden's personal library.
so Alex, I have a thought, just continuing on with Dennis and Roger's thought. So the Rotary Club brings public awareness to the impact of these small business owners, but maybe the next step then is asking those small business owners to come and join our Rotary Club in a project.
But then what that project is.
But
So that's
I don't know what the
you wanna
project,
talk
I don't know
about.
what the project is. I know that's what you're getting at. But so we're not just doing for the business owners, but we're welcoming them to come and help and give back. I don't know what the project is. Picking up trash.
True. So
But one
we're
of the
gonna go back
5
to-
areas of focus for Rotary is economic development.
True. But we want to identify projects where we're going to get people involved, so they're involved with the Rotary Club. And so those are, what kind of ideas can your club do with a nonprofit? That's where we're trying to focus it in, because there's Rotary clubs do things all the time. So we know that, but we're trying to change that paradigm of getting people to show up at a service project while you're partnering with a nonprofit. Does anybody have any ideas along that line? Because that's
So-
the key. We're trying to change that paradigm. Sharon, go for it.
Yeah, so I think it's been tough because everything we've done, it's been us volunteering, but I think just some basics of, we write out checks to a lot of the nonprofits in the area. And so I think it's just going back and to our contacts there and asking, how can we help? Where do you need help? What are you focused on? That doesn't necessarily involve a monetary donation. So I think that's a very easy thing that all of us can do with the contacts that we have at our various nonprofits in our cities and communities.
Very true. Dave Anderson, remember we attempted this with one of your clubs, and they had a nonprofit that they write lots of checks to, but they had a challenge on asking how we can help. Can you kind of describe that?
Yeah, we had a Rotary Club that made a pretty significant monetary contribution to build a fence around a shelter for women. And Alex's suggestion when he saw that posted in I think one of our Facebook feeds was to reach out to that shelter and say, look, are there other ways we can partner with you to help provide volunteers to do the things that you do? And to be honest, it's kind of like a little bit like this conversation. This is a hard concept for people to wrap their head around because this is so different than what is the typical, as you've been talking about, the typical Rotary model. And we couldn't quite convince that club that there was a real opportunity there to reach out and build a volunteer base made up of non-Rotarians that would come in to help that particular cause through Rotary. And so I think what you're saying is this whole presentation is right on target, but it's hard to get people to think a little bit more broadly about how do we recruit these non-Rotarian volunteers to do these things. Is that the instance you're talking about?
Yes, yes. And it's interesting is recruiting these non-Rotarian volunteers is just asking people you know to volunteer alongside you.
Exactly. That's exactly.
And most of us have a lot of non-Rotarian friends. Like the majority of our friends aren't a Rotary. So instead of saying join Rotary and show up at a meeting, say, hey, you want to help me deliver food to those in need? A lot of people will say yes. They're like, that's all? Well, yeah, Saturday at 10 o'clock, show up with me. Yeah, bring your wife, bring your kids, bring your kid. Yeah, so the thing is, I'm just trying to get you guys to just think differently in terms of, the goal is to get non-Rotarians to stand beside you and help the community. That's where the magic happens. Everybody talks about their story in Rotary, it always involves some sweat equity thing. Nobody ever joined Rotary because they felt so good about writing a check. It was always like, did this and I was able to help somebody. And that's when I became a Rotarian. You guys you've heard those stories, right? It was always sweat equity that when they became a Rotarian, when they saw it made a difference. So what this is saying is partner with a nonprofit. So it makes it really easy for the Rotary Club. I mean, you don't have to do anything but show up. That's the easiest project in the world. Step one. Step two, then to find out what that is. And then what we're going to do 2 weeks from now, just getting people to come stand beside you and help somebody. Hey, we need to give food to somebody. Let's both do it. When they are giving somebody food in need, and they're going to say, this is what Rotary does, then they're going to want to join. It's an easy sale because they've experienced the art of service. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to think of. How can we give the gift of service to other people in the community, which is really the gift of Rotary?
It truly is a multiplier effect, right? I mean, you're multiplying the impact that your club is having by involving that many more people exponentially in the service that you're helping to provide to that nonprofit.
And if you're nice to them, they'll join.
That's
ultimately the goal, right? You got to be nice to them. Well, then there's a third component that's really important. Rotarians have problems with this. We like planning our projects, coming up with the rules and having the bosses of it. Well, when you partner with the nonprofit, they're the boss and they have their rules. And the only way you're going to be able to consistently partner with them is understand what their volunteer requirements are. Here's the thing. Who's here ever volunteered with either a city, a school district, or a nonprofit before? And did you have to sign a waiver of release of liability? And why did you do that waiver of release of liability? So if you get hurt, you don't sue them, right?
You have a hold harmless thing, yeah.
Did you know that, as Rotary clubs, part of our dues pays for our insurance, right? And presidents get an email like February, March for the Rotary year, give the president-elects, and it tells them the details of that insurance policy. And 99% of people don't pay attention to it. But if you do, they actually recommend that we use waivers and release of liabilities for the same reason. If a club member gets hurt at a club event, they could sue your club. Your membership does not have a release of liability thing. So they recommend that all participants sign a waiver of release of liability, no different than every other nonprofit out there. And so I'm just explaining, one, we need to do it as Rotary clubs. Most don't. Any lawyers in the house, you're like, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. But every other organization, they are not going to let you help them unless you get your volunteers to sign that. So you need to be, you just know they're going to do it, whether we do it or not. So say, hey, are there any forms that our volunteers need to sign? They're going to be impressed that you asked. And more importantly, they're going to be impressed that you also follow through with it. So I know when we work with the school district, it's a challenge because you have to get background checked. So our volunteers have to get background checked at least 2 weeks before the project. Well, at first we were didn't want to do it, but we're like, hey, we want to help the school district, so we get it done. Well, now we get a lot of the same volunteers because once your background check that lasts for a year. Well, why do you think we're the only nonprofit that's a school district allows inside? Because we know the rules, we follow the rules. And all nonprofits are like that. If you go in there trying to take over, well, we don't do it that way, then they're not going to want to work with you. And Rotarians have that problem. We think we're in charge, we know best, we're big Rotary, so you got to let us do it our way. Yes, Eric.
Alex, so on the release of liability, does Rotary have like a boilerplate that clubs can use?
If you click through that link they send you from AIG, it's got a website that has the same password every year and they provide it, but most people don't read it. And so what we did, we took that form and then we added language that allowed us to basically approval for likeness, so we can use pictures because we take a lot of pictures like you see behind me. So when they fill out our waiver of liability, it also says that we're allowed to use the pictures. And then we also have it where we're allowed to send them emails because we have a database of over 880 volunteers. Well, when they sign our release of liability, we're allowed to use our pictures and we're allowed to email them because all those are liabilities. And you don't worry about it until you get busted on it. But yeah, Rotary gives you the template, and then we just had one of our attorney friends kind of add to it. And we made it electronic. So they just click like a DocuSign. So our forms are electronic, so that way they can do it over the internet. So all of our 880 people in our volunteer database, we have waivers of release of liability on them. But so know their rules. Most nonprofits have volunteer rules. They'll have a volunteer coordinator. If you know it and follow it, then that makes you a good partner. Yes, Dave.
You know, I want to draw attention to something you just said that I want to make sure people don't miss. You keep that database of everybody that's volunteered on behalf of your club or with your club on volunteer projects. And you keep going, you keep building that list and you keep going back to those people and maintaining that relationship. I really think that's a significant piece. And I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to that and emphasize that, because that's how you build that base, is by staying in touch with every one of those volunteers, right?
And exactly. And that's what companies do all the time, right? These are just business. I'm a business coach. I just applied it to a Rotary Club. We started with 0 in the data. We had no database. Now it's over 800 in just over a few years, just by getting everybody involved. And so and I'll tell you, and what we evolved to do, now we have a monthly newsletter, and all it does is talk about our upcoming projects, and it goes out to that database. And that's all it does. We're not pitching for money or meetings. It's just upcoming service projects in Plano. And they could click a button and volunteer. Because once you start mixing it up, then they're going to want to drop out, because these people are only interested in volunteering, not all the other stuff. And so exactly, and that's how we nurture that database. And then another thing is to be organized. This is really important. Even though the nonprofit is doing all the work, your club still needs to be organized, and that's what's going to gain the respect in the nonprofit. So we have team leaders. So the team leader is the point of contact with the agency. A lot of times they might have been the one that identified the project, and it's their job to organize it, in terms of making sure our volunteers know what they're doing, communicating with the nonprofit. Just the nonprofit wants to know that we're a good partner, and that's all we're doing. And so we have a community service chair like Eric, but at the club level, their job is not to create the projects or to do the projects, is to train the team leaders to lead their project. And so that's what our community service chair does. So when we have a new team leader, they make sure they know what they need to do. Well, you need to keep on top of this, give this information to our public image team so it could go on social media, go to so-and-so to create it. So their job is to kind of steer this person, because we've had people that have joined our club and a week later, they're a team leader for a service project. Well, they don't know anything about Rotary or anything. So that's what the community service chair helps them do it. So it's easy to do a service project in our club because everybody's helping you do it. So those are the 3 steps. 1, identify who could be your partner. 2, ask them, how can we help? Then 3, make sure you know their rules and you're organized. And then after that, you just move forward. So as I kind of wrap this up, I would love to hear from people here. What are you going to do? Because I'm not here to talk just to talk. You know, I've actually been teaching all day, as Nancy knows. I've been online teaching from basically 10:30 to 5:30. My joy is seeing organizations, clubs implement and grow. And so what are you guys going to do based on what you learned today to move the needle? Anybody? Eric.
Well, I'm gonna go to my club first, and basically we can do a pretty quick inventory of the kind of volunteer things that we do and the partnerships we have, and ask us to think about the next step being, okay, how could we be the organizer of other volunteers to participate in this event or this event or this event? Because I think that'd be really a great exercise, and I think it would also help us think this way for the first time. You know, think how would we recruit and invite other people just to come and volunteer, and like you said, with these basic rules like keep it to 2 hours, you know, make sure it's a show up and do it kind of thing versus a lot of other agony.
Agony, exactly. You know what the best way of getting that started? You do it. Because if you ask everybody else to do it, then it's just going to be a bunch of meetings and he's and ha's and we're so busy, we got all this. You just find a project and do it, and they'll see how easy. I mean, remember, that's how I started. That wasn't my plan. I thought my club would participate, but they didn't. So I had to text friends and show up. And then when they saw that it was happening without them, well, then it's easy to volunteer. Dave.
Is there anybody here from Wapaka? The reason I ask, I understand they recently had a club meeting. They kind of turned it into a club assembly, and they brainstormed by table about nonprofits and service projects that they could be involved with. And they came up with a pretty incredible list of potential projects that they could reach out to nonprofits to become involved with and provide assistance.
That's pretty amazing.
What we're talking about tonight is truly the next step, again, engaging others to help the Rotary Club with those things. But I thought that was a pretty unique and pretty innovative approach. Frankly, the Wapaka Club in a lot of ways is really leading the district in terms of the way they do things. And I think this is just one more example. But is there somebody from Wapaka here?
Diane Forsyth is from Wapaka. Diane, are you still on?
No, I don't see that name.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Marita,
I'm sorry.
Next?
Diane Kepler. I'm sorry,
Oh.
wrong Diane. Diane Kepler, are you still there? She maybe
Diane's
stepped
from
away.
Green Bay West.
There's two of her.
Yeah,
Neither
there's
one
two
of
of
them.
us.
I'm here, and I'm from the Green Bay West Rotary,
Oh.
Wapaka.
I'm
Dennis
sorry.
Rader and I are both co-presidents of the Green Bay West.
Okay, sorry, wrong Diane. My apologies.
No
Forever,
problem.
Diane. Marita, I see you're trying to speak. What can you do next?
Well, I was realizing as I sat here that we had an example that kind of meets what you're talking about, but it was with the wrong group. We have a group of high schoolers who are a diversity and inclusion group. And in Manistee, that is a group of people who have sometimes physical handicaps or other barriers to being part of a general group. And they were going to go clean up the river. And one of our Rotary Club members put on his Rotary shirt and gathered a couple of other grown-up types to come help these kids because they were hauling out big tires from the river and chains and such. And he realized as he got going at this that he was having a great time, and his skills were being called upon that were skills he didn't necessarily have as a prosecutor of the county as he took on this job. But he came back to the club to talk about what a moving experience it had been and how he had worked together with a group of people that really gelled and got a great deal out of that particular experience. And he began to think about other ways that our club could work with that group. What I realized, though, is that some of the younger people in our club who have more contacts with socially with people that are of a younger age, with this kind of catalytic thinking, can actually probably generate some things that some of the rest of us might not be able to. So I see that there's a seed corn there. So my next step in our club will be to work with that seed corn to see where our imaginations could take us.
Exactly. Kind of like what Dave said with the Alpaca Club. Just sow the idea. That's a great next step. Anybody? John, you're quiet with your snowshoes in the background. You're muted, my friend.
Yes, yes, I apologize to all Packer fans. Just a little chilly up here in Iron Mountain. I actually, this past summer, we have a ski jump here, Pine Mountain. It hosts international ski jumps. And the tournament's run by the Kiwanis Club here in town. And I saw an ad in the paper. It was a request for volunteers to help clean up the landing of the ski jump this past summer. So I just went out there. It was on a weekend with a weed whacker and helped for a couple hours. And they served lunch. And so I was talking with them. They tried to recruit me to join the Kiwanis Ski Club.
So they tried to ask you to marry you on the first date, huh?
Yes, pretty much. And the comment that was made by the president of the club was, you're the only person from the general public that has helped us this weekend. And so my next step is I'm going to go back to our club here in town and suggest that we help out the Kiwanis Club clean up the landing. It's a lot of mowing, trash pickup, weeding.
The challenge you're going to have there, somebody might show up that you bring in, then they'll join Kiwanis.
Yeah, this is true.
I'm not sure if I would.
Yes.
That would suck.
Yes.
But I'm sure there might be other organizations that
Yep.
could need some volunteers in your community.
Yep. That is true. Certainly the food banks. It would be another one, warm bodies. But
exactly. Warm bodies that after 2 or 3 volunteer sessions will join your club. That's the eventual goal.
Yep.
Dave.
Is there anybody here from the Lakeland Minocqua Club? The reason I ask, this is really kind of a unique twist. They actually, instead of donating money to different community organizations, they put on, they take part in a huge event in their town called Beefarama, one of my favorite activities of the year, by the way. And they actually pay volunteers from other community groups to help them do whatever it is that they do there. They serve beer and they have they serve food and they do all kinds of stuff. But in the process of doing so, they're writing a check, but they're getting service in return, and they're building relationships with members of other community organizations that I think could be exploited at some point for developing Rotary's own membership in that community. I think it's kind of an unusual and interesting approach. Just wanted to throw that out there.
And so with the words of the district governor, I'm going to go on to, is anybody familiar with this? This is our Rotary vision, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the world, across the globe, in our communities and ourselves. And, we unite and we take action to create lasting change. That's our vision as an organization. And so I want to take this to an end. And my goal is that you partner with some nonprofits, we provide some comfort and care, make them feel comfortable, and we invite the public to participate with you. And that's really, it's a formula that works. And what's interesting about the formula, it's also easy to implement. It doesn't cost you any money. And you're getting out in the community. So I think we have 2 minutes left. I don't know if there's any time for questions, so I will kind of hand it over to Nancy, who is the boss of the day.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. What a great, great session, great interactions. I really actually have a super easy next step, or what's next for everybody. And that is to join us next Thursday when Alex returns. Our topic actually is tied into your comment, Alex, a few minutes ago when you said, what happens when your volunteers show up? Be nice to them. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about using comfort and care of volunteers to retain and recruit members. So thank you so much, Alex. Your job is to please join us next week and bring one of your Rotary friends. Tell your Rotary friends to please sign up. We got lots of space and hope to see you then. Dave, anything from you before we sign off?
No, I just think this was an excellent discussion. And Alex, thank you for forcing us to think a little bit outside the box and kind of open up our minds to what I think is the most effective way for us to grow our Rotary clubs and growing Rotary through service. And I'm very excited about this this initiative. So thank you for all you're doing, Alex, to support our effort here. So
thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure.
All right, we'll see you all next week. Take care. We'll see you next Thursday.
Stay warm, everybody.